Most people hype up Buenos Aires, Argentina as the Paris or the Europe of Latin America because of its beauty, its culture, its architecture, its vibrant energy of the city. And after being here for 2 weeks, I definitely get the hype. But I also saw a lot of things that people don't talk about as well. So in this video, I'm going to go over the pros and cons of Buenos Aires, Argentina. Coming from someone who's lived all over Latin America over the past 3 years, I'm going to give you my honest review of the cost, of the safety, of where to stay, and other things as well, and ultimately whether or not I would live here long term. So let's get into it. So here's what we'll cover in today's video. We're going to go over the cost. Is Buenos Aires getting expensive? We're going to go over best places to stay. I'll go over where I stayed specifically and where I would stay if I were to come again. I'll go into safety. I'll go into the dating scene as a man, lifestyle and people, and then my final verdict, would I stay here long term, and who I think Buenos Aires is for. All right, so let's start with cost of living. So Buenos Aires, well, keep in mind, just for context, I'm currently in Paraguay right now, which is right next door to Argentina. And Paraguay is probably one of the most affordable countries in Latin America, I think. One of the best values you can get. Argentina and Buenos Aires used to be that. Now it's definitely gotten a lot more expensive. Now let's be specific, because the Airbnb that I stayed in, and what you'll find is you actually get pretty good value, I believe. I think the Airbnbs aren't bad at all. So I'll just give you a quick overview of where I stayed. I stayed right in Palermo. This is Hollywood. This is Soho. Basically the best locations, in my opinion, in the entire city. And it's a massive city. I'll get into best places to stay, but this is basically where like the best area is, where probably the most expensive places are. And this is where I stayed. All right. I was here for a couple weeks. You can see it's a decent sized studio. It has a really nice view. I'll play some B-roll as well of the place. Beautiful view. Great location. And very affordable. Like for 2 weeks, without a discount, I think I paid, was it a few hundred? Yeah, it was 376, So probably for a monthly rate, you could probably get it for maybe 700 if you wanted to do monthly. Let's just do a search in general when it comes to Airbnb. In this particular area, we'll just do Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is how I search Airbnb, by the way. And Airbnb is great. I've gotten comments before like, hey, that's not the real price. Airbnb, you're paying a premium. Well, yeah, but if you're staying for less than 6 months or 3 months, then you're probably going to want to go the Airbnb route, because you don't want to buy furniture, put up deposits, sign leases. Like, there's no reason for that. I prefer the hassle-free route, which is why I like Airbnb. So here it is. Let's just go right to Palermo. Look at all the options you have, right? For less than $1,000, and this is the monthly rate. All right. So even if I do entire home, which you usually need to do twice for whatever reason, like look at where the medium is, right? Probably right around there. You're under $1,000. So you can find plenty of options between we'll just even say like 600 to 800. You have plenty of options, in the most expensive part of the city. So Airbnbs, I think, are really good value in Buenos Aires. That hasn't changed much at all. All right. What's changed is the food and going out and necessities, like even laundry service, right? I think I paid like $12 for basic laundry, which I would normally pay maybe $3 or $4. So stuff like that has gotten really expensive. Restaurants, cafes, groceries. It's almost like you're living in the States now. Now, caveat, the food is great here as far as restaurants, but it's pretty expensive. So if you're someone who's eating out every day like I do, which has been my lifestyle, here in Latin America, I basically eat out every day. I rarely cook. It's probably on par where you can get a chef or eat out every day. I prefer to just eat out for now. That's where your costs are going to skyrocket. Okay, so if you're someone who cooks at home, or maybe you can even hire a chef, because I'm sure labor is still pretty cheap here. I didn't hire a chef, so I can't speak to that in Buenos Aires. But that might be the best route for you to live a great life for a low cost of living, right? So overall, I think that it's still cheaper than the States overall, but it's not crazy cheap. And I don't like using the word cheap. Let's call it affordable. But I'd say it's at least 2, maybe 3 times the amount more than places like Paraguay or Colombia, maybe 2.5. If I were to live here, I'd spend at least 2,500 a month, and I wouldn't live nearly as good as I do in Paraguay or even Colombia, right? Or even Mexico. I think it's even more expensive here than places in Mexico. It's more on par with Mexico, but slightly more expensive than Mexico, in my opinion. That includes like Mexico City, Guadalajara, right? Those places. So yeah, if I were to live here, I wouldn't eat out as much. I'd really keep it to a minimum. I would cook in most days, maybe hire a private chef, and that'll keep my cost of living low, right? So again, I was in Palermo, which is probably the most expensive and touristy part of Buenos Aires. So anytime I walked outside my apartment, there was like a Starbucks. I think coffees were like $5. Any cafes, any lunch spots, everything was super expensive. Any bakeries, any pastries, like whatever it is you wanted to get in my area was super expensive. So I would just go to a more affordable area, even maybe Recoleta or other neighborhoods, which I'll get into, to really save on the eating out aspect of your experience here in Buenos Aires. All right, so where to stay as far as best neighborhoods that I'd recommend. So we have Palermo, which is broken down into 3 sections. I stayed in Hollywood, which is a little more chill. It's still pretty touristy, but you get a lot of nice restaurants, a lot of cafes. It's more of a chill vibe. It's really nice, super clean. Palermo Soho is right next door, and I'll show you a map of these places. This is more like nightlife, trendy bars, more hipsterish, right? More loud. So I prefer to stay in Hollywood, but you're really short, like you're walking distance or a short, very short Uber ride to Soho. And then you have Palermo Chico, which is more quiet, upscale, and residential. And let me just show you what that looks like real quick. So Palermo's right here. We have Hollywood, Soho, and then Chico's this little part right around here. All right. And you see here, you're very close to all these parks. This is beautiful, by the way. These parks are awesome to run, to walk, to bike. They're a good size. Definitely really nice to check out. And then we have Recoleta, which is a little more central. I'd say you have more high rises, a little more historic as well. You're still close to the parks. Recoleta is this area here. Right around this area, I think close to the parks is probably the best place of Recoleta. Is probably where I would stay. You're spending a little less than you would in Palermo, and it's really, really nice area. This little section here, you have a bunch of restaurants, you have a mall. You're close to pretty much everything that you need, right? And you're very close to the parks, and these parks are beautiful. So this would be a good place to stay outside of like the touristy area of Palermo. And then Via Crespo, I'll go over Santalmo and Belgrano. So yeah, Via Crespo it borders Palermo. It's more local. You're still close to Palermo, but there's less to do. There's definitely very few tourists here. I want to say few, but much less touristy area. Definitely more affordable than a Palermo, right? So this is more getting more bang for your buck. San Telmo, actually had a friend, she stayed here in San Telmo. This is more artsy, bohemian, definitely historic. Reminded me a lot of like urban New York City. Super vibrant. Like a lot of people here stay up until like 2, 3, 4 a.m. This part like hardly ever sleeps at San Telmo. And then we have Belgrano, which is more chill, relaxed, upscale, laid back. Let me show you where these places are located. Here is San Telmo is right here. All right, so this whole area here, like San Nicolas, San Telmo, Puerto Madero's over here. This is more like ritzy and more exclusive. But this little strip here is vibrant. There is a lot going on here. A lot of good places to eat. Awesome pizza shop I went to here. Just super busy, right? So if you're younger, right, this is probably be a good cool place to go. You'll bump into a lot of people here. Recoleta again is more chill. Let me show you Via Crespo's right here. So you have Palermo, right? You can see here where the shade is, the shade of like slight yellowish. This is because there's a lot of restaurants, there's a lot of shops, right? Things like bars in these areas specifically. And then Via Crespo is a little more chill, right? This whole part is Via Crespo. And then you have Belgrano, which I think is underrated. I think if I were to come back to Buenos Aires, which I will come back, it'd probably be Belgrano or most likely Recoleta. would be my my choices. So yeah, once again, I stayed in Palermo, Hollywood. It was only 2 blocks away from where the I think it was the lead singer of One Direction. He fell off a rooftop and he unfortunately passed away. It happened 2 weeks before I got there. They had like a memorial and a bunch of flowers where that happened. So it was literally the same location where that happened. And I think it's a really good place to start when you're in Buenos Aires, just to get comfortable with the city, right? Because you're very walkable to everything, to cafes, to bars, to parks. But as I mentioned, next time when I do come back to visit, I'm gonna probably stay in Recoleta or even Belgrano, because if it seems more residential. It's much less touristy. I feel like I'm in Buenos Aires versus like being surrounded by other foreigners. You'll be surrounded by more locals, and it's very safe. You still have all the cafes, a bunch of restaurants, things to do, and you're still close to everything. So these would be more neighborhoods that I would look more into when I do come back to Buenos Aires. All right, now what about safety in Buenos Aires? So Buenos Aires being a massive city, it was actually a lot safer than I expected. There was at no point where I felt unsafe. I ventured all over the city, even a little bit outside the city. I spoke to a lot of people. I spoke to Uber drivers, people that lived there. A friend of mine was there for a few months, and she stayed in San Telmo, which is more it's more urban, it's more busy, it's probably less safe than a Palermo. She had no issues either as a woman. So definitely a safe spot. Just make sure you stay in the neighborhoods that I mentioned if you're going to be here for a period of time. I didn't get much sketchy vibes. Like in some parts of Colombia, Mexico, like it does get pretty sketchy, even in the best neighborhoods. I didn't get that sense in Buenos Aires. As long as you're in these neighborhoods that I went over, Palermo, Recoleta, Belgrano, it doesn't get sketchy at all, really. So super safe, in my opinion. But outside of these areas, it will get sketchy and it will get very dangerous. I spoke to some locals there, and Buenos Aires is not that safe of a city once you're outside of like the the vortex, right? The safe bubble that you'll probably be in if you're in Argentina. Um, so it does get very dangerous outside of those areas, but obviously there's no reason for you to go to those areas. So just make sure you're inside the neighborhoods. It's massive. It's a massive city, so you have plenty to do within that radius, so that you should never have any issues with safety at all. I never heard any stories of people getting robbed or any druggings or any muggings or anything like that. So definitely ranks pretty high when it comes to safety. You know what? There's also older couples and families that are out till like midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So that was pretty interesting to me, seeing older people, which normally in the States they'd be in bed by like 7, 8 o'clock. Out here, they're up at night. They're very social in this city. This is a very social city, right? I'll go into that in another section. All right, what about dating? So I was in Buenos Aires for a couple weeks, so I can't speak a lot to the dating. Um, I think there is a lot of potential here when it comes to dating as a single man, but it's not my ideal place for dating. So it is a massive city again, tons of options, tons of good looking women walking around, more of the European looking, thin frame, white, Caucasian looking women. Not very different from what you'll see in Paraguay, in Colombia, in Brazil, and Mexico. Really anywhere else. This is probably and that's why I think it does get a European vibe, right? Because even the women look European here. So if that's your type of woman, then yeah, you'll love it here. But if it's not, if you prefer like brunette, dark hair, curvy frame, and of course I'm just talking physically right now, then it might not be your ideal dating scene. And there are a lot of rumors or people saying that the women here or the people here are generally colder, more standoffish. They think they're better than other people. Like, and when I was in Paraguay, a lot of people said that too, that the Argentinians think they're better than everyone else, right? And there is kind of a vibe to that, and I think most people will agree with that. It is slightly true. Specific to Buenos Aires, outside of Buenos Aires, I haven't been outside of Buenos Aires, but from what I hear, it's totally different too to Buenos Aires. So just keep that in mind. But I think it's great for volume, for day game, for cold approach. Like it's a great dating scene if you're younger and you want a lot of options, Buenos Aires is definitely a good spot. I prefer cities where I would stand out more, right? Somewhere between 1 to 5 million in population is what I like if I'm going to live in a city and date in a city. Buenos Aires has over 15 million people. It's massive. You're a small fish in a big pond, right? So if that's what you like, if that's what you like, then it's a great setup. But for someone like me, I prefer mid-sized city where I'll stand out a little more, and where it's women that my type of women as far as like attraction goes. All right, moving on to lifestyle and nightlife and parks and food. This is where Buenos Aires is amazing, in my opinion. So coming from Paraguay, being there for 8 months, it's a breath of fresh air to go to a place like Buenos Aires, right? I'm from Boston, which is a decent sized city, but obviously I've been in New York, Miami, Austin, Texas. I've been in some of the bigger cities in the States. And there's something to be said about the energy in a big city where not necessarily where I'm at now in life. Like I wouldn't want to live in that type of environment, but to visit, it's amazing. The city comes alive at night. Dinner at 10 p.m. is normal. People leave clubs at like 7, 9 a.m. That's pretty normal here. I remember when I first arrived from the airport, I saw young people walking at like 7, 8 a.m. and they looked like they were dressed to impress, right? And they were literally just getting out of the club, and the club was still open. So these clubs don't start until later. We'll say very early in the morning, like maybe like 1, 2 a.m. And they go until like 7, 9, even 10 a.m. Right. So it's that type of a nightlife. And as I said, even the older people here, like they live it up here. Talking like couples, women in their 60s and 70s, maybe pushing 80s, out at like 2, 3 a.m. just enjoying life. And drinking and socializing, and it's pretty cool. I think like to be that age and still living as if you're a young person. So these people have young souls, they have young spirits, they're super energetic, they're very social. So it's a fun place to be for sure. Another thing that I really liked about the lifestyle and just the city itself is there's amazing parks here for running, for walking, for sightseeing. Like the parks are beautiful. I'll share some b-roll on that as well. Something about, I don't know, going jogging in a beautiful park, right? You feel like you're in nature. The parks here are beautiful. So I mean, not much more to say about that, but probably some of the best parks that I've seen all over anywhere in Latin America. Now the food is also top tier. All right, so I went to a few restaurants. Everything was good. Everything was good. I mean, steaks, even croissants, empanadas here, the best empanadas I've had in Latin America. Even the pizza. There's a pizza spot here that was amazing. I can't say enough good things about the food, which is why it's nice to go to a place like this, right? It kind of reminded me of Mexico City in that sense, because Mexico City also has some of the best food that I experienced. Lima, Peru has some of the best food. I'll do a Lima in the near future on that. But that's the great thing about a big city is the food scene is amazing, and it's no different here in Buenos Aires. Now, the one con that I will say is that getting cash here was a pain. Basically, ATMs are useless. Okay. So don't even go to ATMs. They're going to give you like 20 bucks max, and you're going to pay a stupid fee for it. Even if you have a Charles Schwab card, which I do, you get reimbursed, but even that's annoying. Like you're paying stupid fees. I don't remember what the fees were, but the max you can even take out is like 20 bucks in most of these ATMs, right? And 20 bucks is going to go for like a lunch in Buenos Aires, right? So you got to use Western Union here. You got to use the Blue Rate. I won't go into too much detail with this, but just know that it's kind of a pain if you're someone who likes paying in cash like I do. I don't really like swiping my card all the time. That was probably the one con that I didn't like about Buenos Aires. All right, so just to recap, I mean, this is definitely I'd agree with what people say as far as it being the most European feeling city that you'll find in Latin America. Obviously because of the architecture, but also because of the women and the people. Right, they're very European looking. And also attitudes, as I mentioned earlier. I won't speak too much on that else, but also the gorgeous parks, the cafes, the theater vibes. It's huge theater vibes. Lots of theaters, lots of museums, lots of history here too. So if you're a history buff, if you like going to the theaters, you'll love it here. At least visiting. And it has an incredible high energy living. Great if you're in your 20s. Again, I'm more chill. I'm in my 30s now, so I prefer more chill, laid back. A place like Paraguay, even parts of Colombia, maybe parts of Mexico, where there's still enough fun, but it's not like a lot of fun, right? Where you're up till 7, 8 a.m. And if you're not in that lifestyle, then, you might feel like you're missing out. There's a lot of opportunities to go out, a lot of social events. So if you just want if you want a more chill, laid back lifestyle, it might be too fast paced for you, but definitely worth visiting, in my opinion. All right, so final verdict. Would I live here in Buenos Aires, Argentina? Well, as you can imagine, I've already referenced a couple times being more chill and laid back. For short term, 100% yes. Yeah, I think 1 or 2 weeks max in Buenos Aires is awesome. It's great to experience some fun, some amazing food, some nightlife vibes, some big city energy, especially if you're in a medium-sized city like I am. I prefer to live in medium-sized cities between 1 to 5 million. And I love to visit cities that are like 10 plus million, like Mexico City, Lima, Peru, and Buenos Aires, Argentina. So this is more of a getaway for me, especially being in Asuncion the majority of the time of the year. I love Buenos Aires for probably, like I said, more than a long weekend. I'd say more like 1 or 2 weeks to escape. And it's such an easy flight. It's a short flight. It's an affordable flight. It's a direct flight. So it's perfect if you're in Paraguay, for instance, right? So definitely great for me for a short-term visit. Long-term, I don't think so. I don't think it's for me at this stage. Also, the economy is not as stable, right? It's constantly fluctuating. So it's not an economy where I'd want to convert my dollars into that currency and like have a bank account and have potential have investments there and, look into getting residencies there. It's not something that I would consider right now at all for Argentina. So long term for me, probably not. I mean, if you would have forced me to live in Argentina, though, like it'd be a good life. But for me, I think there's better options at this time. Yeah. So who do I think is for? I think if I were still in my 20s, like I would consider living here for sure. It's fun. It's energetic. You'll meet a ton of people. It's awesome for networking, right? If you're a young person, if you have a lot of energy right now, if you don't care about your sleep, which you should, but if you don't, then you'll love Buenos Aires. Me at 37, I mean, I value peace. I value focus. I value on deeper connections. I value stability. So that's why it's not for me over the long term. But this is a city that I will always be visiting. Probably for the rest of my life, but not one that I'd call home. So that's it for today's video, guys. Just to recap once again, I think Buenos Aires is a place that everyone should visit. It's very different. It's very unique than any other city you'll see in Latin America. Definitely come by, for probably a couple weeks would be a good time frame, my opinion at least. If you're someone who loves theaters, if you love history, if you love parks, if you love good food, right? Definitely check it out. And if you're someone who's younger, if you love nightlife, if you love clubbing, if you love social life, basically, and staying up till whatever time you want, you'll also love it too. Lots to do here in Buenos Aires for sure. More of a place to visit versus a place to live for me specifically. And if you like this breakdown, be sure to check out my video that I did on 6 months being in Paraguay. I think that'll give you a good contrast from what you'll experience in Buenos Aires. And if you want more content like this as far as living abroad and being in Latin America, then be sure to subscribe and look out for my future videos.